Fractal is back with a small form factor case, and it is priced kind of premium, but it also kind of looks premium. Get the wood grain top. It's toolless. How do you get into it? You take out the dust filter, and then it's unlocked. So this is the Era 2, and like some other Fractal cases that have come before it, it has a movable spine. If you haven't seen Fractal's movable spine concept, basically the midboard here will move from side to side, which will give your GPU more room or your motherboard more room for CPU cooling. It's really designed so you could use an AIO with your CPU cooling and then put in a big honking graphics card. Like our Phantom Gaming graphics card. You can cram a 7900 XTX in there. The Era 2 build guide, actually, if you're interested in doing these builds, covers a lot more than I can in terms of all of the different possible configurations, because you can move the spine, it sort of changes things a little bit. Now, this comes pre-installed with 2 fans in the bottom, and you've got all your cabling bundled here and an accessory box. It's designed for an SFX power supply. It's pretty premium. A lot of it is toolless. You might have to pop out a screw here and there, especially when you go to mount the power supply. So you can take this out to make it a little easier to mount to your radiator or top exhaust fans. You know, basically pulled it down completely, just having that. It comes with the PCI Express extension cable. It comes with mounting brackets for 2.5 inch drives down here, and it's somewhat adjustable. Our front panel I/O, we've got a power button, a combination TRRS port, USB Type-C, 2 USB Type-A. It is really nice to see 2 Type-A and 1 Type-C. No laziness and cheaping out on just... It's like, oh, because you always have to have the Type-C connector for the Type-C, and then, well, not always actually, but a lot of the time you have to have 2 connections to the motherboard for this, and this doesn't waste any ports. So 1 Type-C, 2 Type-A is what your minimum front panel I/O should be in 2024, in my opinion. We've also got the power cable extension, which is going to take power in from the back, route that around the side here, and then connect to your SFX power supply here, which will pull air in, which could be useful for a GPU that, you know, is pushing and pulling air through the back of it. Yeah, it's a lot of thought has gone into this design, and I would expect that given the price point of this configuration. So in terms of clearances, there's a specific page in the manual. There's an entire builder's guide which gives you some builder ideas, but there's a movable spine configuration page which has CPU and GPU width height clearances. So you can go with GPUs up to 70 millimeters thick, 55 millimeters thick in the minimum configuration, maximizing the space for the motherboard, and a maximum length of up to 326 millimeters, although 315-ish would be my recommendation. So the ASRock Phantom Gaming cards are generally designed with those sort of dimensional envelopes in mind. If you've got another graphics card, like we got our XFX Merc, this is a 6950 XT, this was one of the better 6950 XTs, and it's just a little too big. It doesn't seem like it would be. Gives you an idea. The cutout here at the front is really super handy, and you can almost get your GPU mounted, but the cutout at the front isn't quite large enough and deep enough. And the top does actually almost, but not quite go on with our 6950 XT. It's really, really close. I even tried the ASRock Taichi 7900 XTX, and technically this card will fit, but you have negative 0.5 millimeters to spare, meaning that it's just barely too big. If you finagle it around and you loosen the screw on the PCIe extension so that the card can sit at like a 5-degree angle, it'll work and you can put the top on, but it's a really, really tight fit, and I would not recommend it. Man, I really wish that would have fit. This is also a problem for the non-Founders Edition version of the 4090, for example. So like if you're trying to cram a 4090 in here, you kind of miss out. And I think this is where, like, okay, this is Era 2, it's going to be a premium product, and it really does. I mean, this looks incredible sitting on a desk, but if you're going to pay this much for a case, you're probably going to get a really, really high-end graphics card. And it almost is big enough to fit the 7900 XTX and the 4090 FE. So be sure to check the measurements in the manual and go by the measurements in the manual to know if your version of the graphics card is going to fit or not, because some of them might. And you can definitely get the reference edition of the 7900 XTX in here, no problem at all. And there's, you You could get a 4090 in here if you really want to. You just have to be careful about which one you choose. You get room for 3 slot graphics cards, 3 slots, and just a little bit is the maximum amount of room that you have. There's no dust filtering on the side, really. So if your graphics card pulls from the side, there's not really a dust filter or anything like that on the side, but, you know, it's fine, basically. The accessory box just comes with screws, really. Motherboard screws, a couple of zip ties, power supply screws, and some fine thread mounting screws. So this is one of the most minimal Fractal accessory boxes to have ever been. And yet, this case, this configuration, unlocks a lot of possibilities. And these Fractal fans look like quite an upgrade over the Fractal fans that I came to know and love in cases like the Meshify. So these look like they're a little bit more premium. But to really know, we kind of need to do a build in this. I think Fractal's expectation is that you'll go with like a 240 millimeter AIO for your CPU cooling, and then, you know, a big honking graphics card. And a 3-slot graphics card, it's going to be your maximum. Does have a really nice fine mesh dust filter on the bottom. That does make a nice, attractive, small build, doesn't it? The design for the airflow is all of the air coming in from the bottom and the sides, exhausting the hot air out the top. If you have a cat, your cat probably will really like to stay on top of the case, I suppose. And because the power button is on the front, the cat should not accidentally hit it. At the time that I'm doing this video, MSRP is around $199. Clearly, Fractal is going for the premium build, and the internals here are pretty premium. Get the wood grain top, which is, you know, a 2-part. It's wood grain plus metal. You get the offset mounting on the top, which will reduce the fan noise because there is a little bit of space between this grill and the actual fans, and so it'll have it'll create a little less turbulence that you might be able to hear. Gives you some mounting options for the fans in terms of screw heights. Like Cooler Master is sort of notorious for having the really tall radiator screws. Boom, there's enough clearance on the top of this to be able to handle those. You will have to get an SFX power supply, and I wouldn't recommend an SFX-L. Just a regular SFX power supply would be a good choice for this. For my build, I've got the spine on number 3, which gives the GPU the maximum amount of room. And that's pretty much all there is to say about the ERA2. I'm Wendell, this is Level 1. If you're thinking about doing a build with this, give us a parts rundown. Give us some pictures on the forum at Level 1 Techs. I'm signing out, and I'll see you there.